When a politician gets caught blatantly lying to the American public, it can damage their career. But when a corporation does the same thing, they just continue to do business as usual, and the public barely pays attention most of the time. That's the case with the pharmaceutical case I want to talk to you about. A case where they lied to the American public about the dangers of their blockbuster diabetes drug, Actos. And joining me now is Chris Paulos. He's one of the attorneys who's working to hold that company accountable for their negligence. Chris, are you there?
I'm here, Mike.
Tell us the Actos lawsuit story. It's such an important story because so many people are taking this damn drug. What is it, 2.3 million prescriptions?
That's absolutely correct.
Yikes.
In the first 3 quarters of 2010, there were 2.3 million prescriptions filled for this drug. The drug has been considered a quote-unquote blockbuster for Takeda International. Now, Takeda International is Japan's largest pharmaceutical company, and they've been selling this drug to the American public for nearly a decade. It was released by the FDA onto the market in 2000. And at the time that occurred, Takeda and the FDA were aware that this drug was causing bladder cancer in vivo studies in rats. Part of the release of the drug, Takeda was required to do some studies, long-term studies, follow-up studies with the effects on humans.
Yeah. And full disclosure, Chris, I'm working on this case. So are you. But this is a story that has to get out there. In Europe, they've pulled this off the shelves in France. German doctors have instructed not to prescribe Actos to patients. What is the difference between a human being in Europe and one in America? I just don't get why the FDA won't take strong actions and get this off the shelves.
Well, I think it's absolutely clear that the FDA is coddling to the pharmaceutical company in this case. You're absolutely right. France yanked this drug from the shelves. Nobody in France can get this treatment for their diabetes anymore. Immediately following that, German doctors were instructed blatantly not to prescribe this drug. And here in America, the FDA simply announces a warning and says to the public that they're just going to continue to monitor the studies that are ongoing.
It's causing bladder cancer, for God's sakes. What, a 40% increase? The numbers are staggering. 40% increase in the risk of bladder cancer for people who are using Actos. And the FDA says, that's okay?
Absolutely, and the studies show that the long-term use of Actos is what increases your chances of bladder cancer, and people have been using this for 10 years as a long-term treatment for their diabetes. It's not like they go on and off it and fluctuate. They use it over a long period of time, and so these folks are falling into that category, making it very likely that they're going to have bladder cancer.
This isn't the thing that's so agonizing to me about this story. For type 2 diabetes, this isn't the only product out there that people can use where there's not a 40% increase for the risk of bladder cancer. But, so if the FDA pulled it off the market, people are going to have alternatives. It's not like it's the only type 2 diabetes drug out there, is it?
Absolutely not. People have been treating their type 2 diabetes with other treatments for years, and there's other alternatives for them to go about safely treating their type 2 diabetes besides using drugs like Actos.
So how does the FDA? Look, we all know the stories of the FDA. They were allowed Vioxx, Fen. You going for Breslin? You going forever? Where the FDA has dropped the ball, and people die because of their terrible abilities to be able to keep us safe. Whether it's talking about the USDA, lets E. coli into the United States, or the FDA that allows these drugs to stay on the market. What is this? Takeda, are they that strong politically that they can just, say, okay, well, we know we're killing people with bladder cancer, 40% increase for bladder cancer taking Actos. We know there's alternatives, but it's a cash cow. We're making a lot of money, so let's just keep it on the market.
Really? That's exactly it. Takeda is such a large corporation. They're well entrenched in the United States. They've got corporate headquarters all across our country, and they make a ton of money off this drug. They make billions and billions of dollars, and the FDA allows them to keep this drug on the market, despite the fact that other countries and other regulatory agencies have blatantly drawn a line in the sand, seen the numbers, and yanked it from the shelves.
Am I wrong that Germany and France took it from the shelves? You can't buy it because they said, and what I don't get is what's different from the physiology of a human being in France and different from the physiology of somebody in the United States. They're built exactly the same way, have the same kind of bladder, have the same kind of kidneys. But nevertheless, our FDA says, no, the French have enough sense to take it off the market, but we don't.
Exactly. In fact, the French government was paying for people to be on this drug, and there are less people in France taking the drug than there were in the United States. And we end up just being guinea pigs for these drugs. And then when these effects come, or these risks are associated with these drugs, we continue to just be a source of profit rather than a consumer in which somebody cares about.
Well, I mean, you saw other problems with the drug, congestive heart failure, liver problems, but they weren't as overwhelming as the numbers that we're seeing with bladder cancer. Now, let me ask you, does it have to do with how long they take it? What's the dose? I mean,
that's what the studies show. And you're correct in pointing out that people did look at Actos, or the active ingredient pioglitazone, for the heart damage it was causing. But there were drugs that were causing more damage on people's hearts. But with the bladder cancer, pioglitazone, the active ingredient in Actos, it's shown that if you take it for more than 12 months and you take it at a high dose, the highest dose that can be taken at one time, or that's recommended that you take at one time, is 45 milligrams. Now, if someone were to take that high dose multiple times a day for 12 months, their chance of developing bladder cancer jumps 40%.
All right, and so again, understand, and I know you know this story, the FDA, they have people from the pharmaceutical industry. It's like a revolving door. They move into the FDA. People from FDA move out. So, I mean, how do you ever tell a scientist, how do you prevent a scientist from ruling in a way, if you're working for the FDA and you're telling that scientist, hey, Billy Bob, just do your job, and when you come out of there, we may give you a job with a big pharmaceutical company, and you're going to be making 5 times what you're making here with the FDA. How do you ever get a safe drug out there when we know that goes on?
I don't have an answer for that, because as you've heard, the fox has been guarding the hen house in the FDA for so long. These people are making so much money. They go from private corporation into government service, back and forth. They jump the fence, and it's happened for so long. And it's the regular course of dealing there between the corporations and the FDA at this point.
Chris Paulos, stay on this story. We'll follow up. I know we need to follow up on this story, because this is something the FDA should be required to pull this product from the market.